Hello, this is Bruce from My Dear Mandarin. In this episode of our Mandarin 101 series, we are going to be looking at 5 street foods from Taiwan and also some useful sentences that you could use during your Mandarin learning process. If you haven't checked out our previous episode, please be sure to click a link on the top right corner, and always remember to leave a like, share, and subscribe for more weekly Mandarin content coming your way. Now, with our introduction out of the way, let's look at 5 street foods from Taiwan. The first street food that we're about to look at is a white radish cake, and in Mandarin, that is 萝卜糕, 萝卜糕. The second street food for today is a pig blood cake, and in Mandarin, that is 猪血糕, 猪血糕. The third food for today is stinky tofu, and in Mandarin, that is 臭豆腐, 臭豆腐. The fourth food for today is sweet potato balls, and in Mandarin, that is 地瓜球, 地瓜球. The fifth and most famous street food from Taiwan is bubble tea or boba tea, and in Mandarin, that is 珍珠奶茶, 珍珠奶茶. Now, with our foods out of the way, let's look at some useful sentences for today. This week's sentence is going to let you ask someone what's their favorite Taiwanese street food, and in Mandarin, that is 你最喜欢的台湾小吃是什么？你最喜欢的台湾小吃是什么？ Breaking down the sentence, 最喜欢 meaning the favorite, 台湾小吃 being Taiwanese street food. And in response, you could say, like, for example, you like boba tea the most, you would say 我最喜欢珍珠奶茶. 我最喜欢珍珠奶茶. Let's look at another example. If you like pig blood cake the most, you would say 我最喜欢猪血糕. 我最喜欢猪血糕. Now, with our sentences out of the way, it's time for our question of the week. This week's question is going to be 你最喜欢的台湾小吃是什么？我最喜欢地瓜球。我最喜欢地瓜球. What's my favorite Taiwanese street food? A. White radish cake. B. Meat buns. C. Stinky tofu. And D. Sweet potato balls. Hello, this is Bruce from My Dear Mandarin. In this episode of our Mandarin 101 series, we are going to be looking at 5 more Taiwanese street food and also some useful sentences that you could use during your Mandarin learning process. If you haven't checked out our previous episode, please be sure to click a link on the top right corner, and remember to leave a like, share, and subscribe for more weekly Mandarin content coming your way. Now, with our introduction out of the way, let's look at 5 more street foods from Taiwan. The first Taiwanese street food that we're about to look at today is beef noodle soup, and in Mandarin, that is 牛肉面. 牛肉面. The second food for today is braised pork rice, and in Mandarin that is 卤肉饭,卤肉饭. The third street food for today is an oyster omelet, and in Mandarin that is 蚵仔煎,蚵仔煎. But most Taiwanese don't say that. They would say that in Taiwanese, which is 蚵仔煎,蚵仔煎. The fourth street food for today is a meat bun, and in Mandarin that is 肉包,肉包. The fifth and final street food for today is tofu pudding, and in Mandarin that is 豆花,豆花. Now with our 5 street foods for today out of the way, let's look at some useful sentences for today. The sentences for this week is going to let you ask where you could get a good street food, and in Mandarin that is 在哪里可以吃到好吃的. Then add in the food you would like to eat. For example, if you would like to know where you can get a good beef noodle soup, you would say 在哪里可以吃到好吃的牛肉面. 在哪里可以吃到好吃的牛肉面? Breaking down the sentence, the 哪里 meaning where, and 好吃 in this case is an adjective which means delicious or good. And in response, if you know where you could get a good beef noodle soup, you could say 你可以在 then add in a place 吃到好吃的牛肉面. If you know that you could get a good beef noodle soup in a night market, you could say 你可以在夜市吃到好吃的牛肉面. 你可以在夜市吃到好吃的牛肉面. The 夜市 in this sentence meaning night market. Now it's time for our question of the week. This week's question is going to be 在哪里可以吃到好吃的卤肉饭？在哪里可以吃到好吃的卤肉饭？ Which Taiwanese street food am I asking? A. Beef noodle soup. B. Oyster omelet. C. Tofu pudding. And D. Braised pork rice. If you know the answer to this question, please be sure to comment down below, and we'll reveal the answers 1 week after the video is published. This is going to wrap up our video for today. If you like this kind of content, please be sure to give us a thumbs up, and I'll see you in our next video. 再见!